Greetings, Hillary Clinton. I am Gordon Angelino. You've probably seen me in other videos, but if you haven't, just look up the word Raptor Eyes on YouTube for more examples of videos like this one. I must respond to this horribly poignant, what shall I call it, example of your thinking, Hillary. You really do put the cart before the horse on everything you do. You're thinking about poverty programs for the world and for the United States at a time when the United States government cannot even pay its own bills. We're going up to the 10 trillion mark on debt, and that's why the most rosy government assumptions that we have. If we were to actually do a thorough and honest accounting, I'm sure that the $10 trillion debt would be shown to be much, much higher. So your contention that we should be spreading goodwill across the world like manna from heaven is rather poorly thought out. In fact, for societies unready for the sort of wealth that we enjoy, the greater abundance that we could bring them would actually be deadly. What happened to the Islamic world once they discovered oil? Well, they started attacking the West, they started sending terrorists, they started to become very violent, whereas for many, many, many years before the discovery of oil, they were a very sleepy part of the world that no one ever much thought about. They were basically another Africa, and that's the way they remained. And they weren't really bothering anybody else. But as soon as you gave that kind of society a little wealth, they became extraordinarily violent. Every young male with pretensions and desire to power and a desire to mate became very active. Whereas in years before the Saudis, we first started discovering oil in Saudi Arabia, the only rather notable violence in the Islamic world was the Barbary Corsairs that our Navy dealt with decisively, and that was only because they were richly pirating trade in the Eastern Mediterranean. So your contention that with poverty programs and spreading goodwill that we can have more world peace and eliminate diseases. For one thing, we should be working on what we need to do at home, which brings me to my next point. We need to maintain funding for basic research, irregardless of our current financial difficulties, because that basic research cannot be profitably done on its own. It really requires some outside funding, although private industry does it better. That's one area where I'm not opposed to government doing a bit of funding for basic research, as long as it has some sort of military application that can later be moved over to civilian use, such as what we've been having with the Defense Advanced Research Projects, also known as DARPA. But we also need to, as a country, find alternative energy sources. And I'm not some sort of global warming advocate. I'm a libertarian myself, but taking money out of the hands of President Putin, the aforementioned Middle Eastern sultanates and other sole proprietorships in the Middle East, tyrannies and so forth, and taking money out of the hands of Venezuela's. My apologies to the Venezuelans. But taking money out of the hands of Venezuela's Hugo Chavez and other communist revolutionaries that have that country in a death grip would be a good thing. So let's concentrate our money and our focus on just surviving this era of high oil prices and undesirable world conditions for the spread of for the spread of capitalism, and because the world conditions for the spread of communism are unfortunately right now very good, especially any time when you have high commodity prices. But We have some problems that we need to solve, and throwing money that we could desperately need in the United States to benighted areas of the world where they haven't really learned to fish yet, as in the Chinese proverb, teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime, but if you just catch a fish for him, you only feed him for a day. Well, Africa, the Middle East, areas of the world referred to as the third world are not areas that are anywhere near being ready to learn how to fish, and so we can't teach them, and feeding them for a day is not going to help anything either. We have to let those areas of the world sort themselves out, pull back our bases and other overly expensive military architecture that we have in those areas, or assets, not architecture, my apologies, but overly expensive military assets from those areas, and simply make some sort of start or ability to stop this foolish spending that we have, and use it toward debt reduction, use it toward the betterment of new technologies that will, over time, make it easier to pay down this horrible black debt. Yes, James Dale Davidson and Lord William Rees-Mogg coined that term in their book, The Sovereign Individual, and you really ought to read it, Hillary. I know you won't agree with its conclusions because you are quite the socialist, but if it comes down to political survival, you might think about these sorts of things. Hillary, my last question is to you: why can't you be more like Ron Paul? Then I'd be happy to vote for you. But think these things over, Hillary. You're not doing the country a great disservice by throwing our money away into these third world hellholes, and also spending our money inefficiently in a healthcare system that is by definition very inefficient. And we are the last remaining area of the world that does really very good medical research, and you're going to close off that too. The socialist healthcare economies of Europe and Canada really do depend on us for new products and drugs, because it's pretty much died there, and now you're going to close it off here. So now we're really not going to be ready for the next pandemic when it finally decides to call, whether it be bird flu or some other, or it emanates from some other vector. So you really need to bone up on it. I recommend Howard Bloom's The Lucifer Principle, Investigating the Forces of History. There we go. This is something you should read, Hillary. Add the aforementioned The Sovereign Individual by Lord William Rees-Mogg and James Dale Davidson. The Road to Serfdom. Would be a great book for you to read, Hillary, because you obviously haven't read anything like that. You really should. Let's see. God, the collected speeches of Ron Paul on the floor of the Senate would be good too. There's many things that you could read. Certain things by Milton Friedman, although I'm not, as free marketers go, he's not my favorite, but he's pretty good. And that's what I leave you with. You have a lot to read, a lot of studying to do, because you obviously don't have a good plan. So take care, Hillary, and try not to make such a mess of things if you get elected. Goodbye. Farewell.